A day of mourning is being held in Kyiv after a children's hospital was hit and other cities across Ukraine struck by missiles, killing 41 people and wounding 190. The strikes were among the heaviest the capital has seen since the conflict began. The United Nations Security Council is meeting at Ukraine's request to discuss the attacks. The UN said it is likely Russia was behind the hospital strike.
Analysis of the video footage and assessment made at the incident site indicates a high likelihood that the children's hospital suffered a direct hit.
And my colleague Robin Dwyer spoke to Megumi Lim, who is outside the children's hospital in Kyiv.
Today has been declared a day of mourning here in Ukraine after yesterday's devastating Russian missile attack carried out across Ukraine. Now, search and rescue operations continued until this morning, but concluded at around midday. However, the work to clear the rubble is still ongoing. At this children's hospital, authorities say 2 people were killed, including a doctor, and some 50 people were injured, including some of Ukraine's sickest children. As you can see behind me, the scene looks quite different from yesterday. Yesterday, the pile of rubble was up to the 2nd floor of this building, and there was a huge crowd of people gathered here. Hundreds of rescue workers and the civilians were working to clear the rubble, some of them using their bare hands to pick up debris brick by brick. Now, this toxicology building behind me took a direct hit from a cruise missile. This is where children used to receive dialysis treatment. Now, the blast wave was so powerful that the building across from it, which was a trauma ward, had all its windows shattered and sustained really serious damages. Now, authorities say that there were about 600 patients and about 600 staff working at this hospital at the time of the attack. But if you look around me and look at the scale of devastation here, obviously it's going to take a huge amount of funds and a long time to rebuild a hospital like this one.
Well, we can hear a little bit of noise there behind you as that work presumably is underway already. What are people saying about how this attack shows the potential need for Kyiv and other cities to get better air defense systems?
That's right. As you mentioned earlier, this was one of the heaviest attacks on Kyiv in 4 months, and also one of the deadliest of the conflict. The death toll from yesterday's attack is now at 42. Now, the last missile attack that took place 4 months ago targeted Ukraine's energy grid, including Kyiv, and it destroyed much of the country's energy generating capacity. And so now, nationwide, there are rolling blackouts on bad days. We get about 3 to 4 hours of power a day, and that means for some people the water supply is cut off. And so President Zelensky has been really lobbying for more air defense systems, and obviously after yesterday's devastating attack, he is repeating calls for more air defense systems. This is something that he's saying is needed to protect the skies over Ukraine, to protect critical infrastructure, and as we saw yesterday, to protect even children. This is something that we are expecting will be discussed at the NATO summit in Washington that begins today. So far, Germany has said that it's pledged 1 more Patriot air defense systems, and the United States has said that it is considering sending 1 more Patriot air defense system to Ukraine.
Megumi Lim in Kyiv. So what is the reaction from Moscow? CGTN's Dasha Chernyshova has more from the Russian capital.
The Kremlin reiterates its position that it is not targeting the civilian infrastructure of Ukraine, instead only attacking the military infrastructure, and saying that it was the result of the Ukrainian air defense missile that has caused this damage to the children's hospital. We've heard the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova saying that it was an ASMA's missile that hit the Kyiv's children's hospital. Also, the Russian officials here reiterate the position that it is a provocation by Kyiv to accuse Moscow of targeting deliberately the civilian objects in Ukraine. And those provocations regularly, according to Moscow, take place ahead of the meetings by the NATO officials. And the goal of these provocations, Moscow says, is to ask for more support and more weapons. Also, the Russian officials have said that this attack that Russia carried out against the targets in Ukraine, that was a group strike in retaliation to to the Ukrainian attacks against the Russian objects for the energy infrastructure and economic facilities. However, this morning we've heard the Russian Ministry of Defense confirming that at least 38 drones of Ukraine have been intercepted, attacking the facilities of Russia's energy infrastructure in the country's south.
Meanwhile, Dasha, Vladimir Putin hosting India's Prime Minister. What have they been talking about?
Well, indeed, the talks between the two leaders, between the Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, have been very constructive. Moscow says that the relations have the level of privileged strategic partnership, and the issue of Ukraine, among other things, has also been high on the agenda. Moscow says the two leaders have managed to discuss it constructively, with Indian Prime Minister actually saying that the negotiated solution is absolutely necessary, but he also noted that it is impossible to hold talks amid the shelling, amid the military activities going on. The Russian president thanked the Indian Prime Minister for his approach and for the attempt to find a negotiated solution. We also understand that the sides have been discussing trade, setting new records for the bilateral trade to be reached by 2030, and also the issue of energy is one of those areas where the two countries have pledged even deeper cooperation, and Indian Prime Minister thanking Moscow's stance on the cooperation in this sphere with India, and saying that was a stabilizing factor as the energy prices worldwide have been growing.